Hey everyone, grab up your deck and lube up your data ports because today we're talking some deep nerd.
Oh yeah, we're talking keyboard throwing contests, nerd raves, and more. So won't you join us as we look into one of the strangest corners of gaming and game development?
Yes, we're looking at Demoscene. What's Demoscene, you ask? Like I just heard everyone in the audience explode in confusion. Well, way back in the furthest reaches of Northern Europe, a group of computer enthusiasts started creating what they called demos using cracked software. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of terms that may not make a lot of sense right away. Don't worry, we'll get there. We just gotta lay the groundwork first.
Yeah, just stick with us. So think of the old Windows media player / Winamp audio visualizer, but way cooler and set to pounding acid techno.
So, I mean, you just said the same thing twice, but yeah, that just means it's way cooler. So yeah, these demos pushed the simplistic technology to do awesome stuff that was really way ahead of its time. It's impressive and it's impossibly nerdy, so it's basically the perfect subject for us here at Inside Gaming.
Yes, we've just been building to this. Why should you care about a niche subculture from a few decades back? Well, the demo scene ended up producing some really important figures in gaming.
Yeah, this is Remedy, DICE, and Starbreeze Studios were all founded by demo groups, and even some more major studios have had former demo scene members on staff. So stick around, if not only for the keyboard throwing contest, which they don't get out much.
So let's start at the beginning. Why was this a thing at all? The quick Wikipedia version is that when computers became little and affordable, like the Commodore 64, people figured out how to crack software. So just FYI, cracking is the process of breaking into a piece of software or kind of getting around its copy protection.
Any poor kid with a computer figures out what cracks are pretty early on, just because, you know, turns out you can play games for free on the PC if you have no moral compunctions. Yeah. They then use the cracked software as a vehicle to show off their coding skills, because, I mean, it's one thing to circumnavigate like encryption software, but that just gives people free games. You can't really show off how icy hot stunning you are. So the earliest version of demos were crack intros, and if you've ever used a crack, you know these. These are the custom intro programs that featured the name of the cracking group. It was kind of like digital graffiti that gave a cracking crew clout in the scene for bragging rights, basically. You know, these are the spinning pyramids of fractals and just like
as a name slowly pixels
in
into
wavy
view,
form. Yeah, it's great. Again, acid techno always.
Yep. So yeah, the intro also let other groups know that you were the first to crack a particular program. That's the clout we were talking about, and you're therefore superior to them in every way. You know, smarter, cooler, that kind of thing.
More.
Yeah, exactly.
Way more.
I don't know about that one, but yeah. So this all tied into something called the Wares scene, which revolved around cracking, copying, and distributing software via floppy disk.
Yeah, pirating used to be way more difficult. Yeah, now you just gotta click a few times. These Zoomers really don't know how good they have it.
No, it's sad.
Used to have to drive into the mountains of Europe and exchange codes with some weird train station guy before you could find a den of
back of a
Mountain Dew
cheese shop.
Dude with 4 cigarettes in his mouth just bashing away on a keyboard.
So crackers would gather and swap floppy disks of pirated games at gatherings, also still cool.
Just realizing that term has 2 meanings now, and both are accurate.
And to the surprise of no one, software developers did not appreciate this practice.
Oh, yeah, weird, right?
Yeah,
How dare people not pay for the thing I made?
Selling stolen goods.
You better not be pirating this video. People trading it on 1.4 megabyte discs. So yeah, as technology advanced, the intro screens became more and more complicated, requiring full groups of people and musicians to create. One of the things I love is escalation in any subculture.
Yeah.
These were considered the first demos. It's kind of difficult to explain how cool these things are, how advanced they were for their times.
Man, if only I was born a decade earlier.
Yeah, and we weren't so dumb.
Yeah, the tech these guys used to make demos was actually way beyond what was intended for the machines and software running them. This is because demo groups weren't interested in stable performance like a piece of commercial hardware. They wanted to push everything to its absolute limit.
Yeah, that was part of the hobby. How can you get a 3D renderer running on a 1 megahertz machine, stuff like that. Not only that, but the most popular categories of demos are 4 kilobytes and 64 kilobytes. That's astoundingly small, meaning that these crazy visuals and music have to fit into a very small package.
Which is again part of the hobby.
Writing that elegant bit of code that writes a fractal in 4 dimensions.
So this is part of why demos were so cool. They were unlike anything anyone had seen before or even thought was possible. So let's say you and your crew of elite nerds have just crammed the most amazing fractal into 4 kilobytes of code. How are you going to get that demo around to show everyone that you and your boys have the real juice?
What's the point if you can't dunk on some other nerds in their weak ass code?
Yeah,
you needed 65 kilobytes?
Oh, that's cute.
Little baby can't compress his code. So yeah, demo sharing initially happened primarily through disc mags and demo parties. Wow, there's so
many D's in this
big
script.
Energy in those words. Disc mags were digital publications on floppy disks that included articles, simple games, and demos.
It probably seems a bit excessive now to have big meetups just to trade discs, but when you look at the alternatives, the post office or really internet, not even that's in like the later era of the demo scene, having an actual meetup space made a lot of sense.
I mean, we've all been there. You go to LAN party in high school just so somebody can give you a stack of CDRs that has Trigon on it. Cool. Plus then you could put a face to a name. game, again, there was a lot of internal competition, good-natured internal competition, but you gotta see your enemy and really get in his head. But demo parties really raise the stakes on these meetings. Why bring a pre-made demo to a party when you can just make it right there, with each team coding, composing music, and making graphics on the spot?
Yeah, those demos were then played, rendered in real time, in front of everyone at the end of the party, with prizes and awards given out in a variety of categories.
Man, just the tension in the air as everybody like last minute changes to code. You get it up to that Commodore 64. You got the water cooling solution in place just to make sure you can render one full polygon, and then the whole thing crashes. Oh, the ignominy.
And don't forget your sleeping bag, because they have a room off to the side where everybody sleeps. It must just be a nightmare in that room.
But the coding miracles being done. So yeah, the demos themselves were undoubtedly the main focus of these parties, but if you get a bunch of nerds together in one room or a train, it's actually a demo party on a train. It's pretty cool. There's bound to be some strange goings on.
And damn, demo parties do not disappoint. So if you are interested in this stuff, we highly recommend doing a deep dive yourself. We'll leave some links in the description, so be sure to check those out.
Yeah, there's some like dialogue entries and journal entries, and it's slightly broken English, but it still has that very cutting sort of nerd sensibility of just talking trash about everything and everyone you see. It's wonderful.
Yes.
It's a real step through time.
They know everything and you are stupid.
Basically yeah.
Is what it is, yeah.
There's more there than we could possibly cover in one video, so we definitely encourage you to jump in yourself. And lest you think that Demosceners were the only capable of great things while on their computers, there were also astounding feats of strength, such as keyboard or motherboard throwing. When you've been pounding room temperature vodka all day, it just seems like a good idea to go outside and throw a keyboard around.
Yeah, it looks cool and it is cool and we all love it, all right? You try staying up all night raving and waking up early to go through a keyboard. And before you ask, yes, there is a regulation keyboard. You can't just show up with any old keyboard and expect to compete.
Why are these guys so competitive?
There are rules.
I guess they never really played like sports. I'm assuming too much here.
There is a highly competitive streak that is in every human being. It might lie dormant if you're not in one of the traditional routes to get that out, like playing a sport, you know, something physical.
Writing
It's gotta get out somehow, and for some people, yeah, it's trying to get a lot of code into a little space.
Bashing out a 3D rendering engine. And we referenced before, but another mainstay were the raves and demo parties. And this is awesome. Yes. So music was a huge part of the demo scene from the very beginning, so raves at demo parties were a no-brainer. I mean, the culture just makes sense. You're making art with just keyboards. Naturally, you're gonna listen to acid techno, which is made with just a computer.
They go hand in hand.
Cranked.
Yep.
Hand cranked this morning.
Yeah, so a lot of the footage kind of looks like what you would expect. A handful of super excited people bouncing around on a mostly empty dance floor, but somehow managing to look even more awkward than the people shuffling their feet off to the side. Kind of like a middle school dance, but with slightly less fingering.
Or so we assume.
Or more, maybe.
Yeah, the fingering didn't show up in the journals. Maybe there's a code word for it. So the interesting thing is there are actually some prominent musicians who came out of the demo scene, like Jesper Kid, who's done music for a handful of major game franchises like Assassin's Creed, Hitman, and Borderlands.
Yeah, speaking of Hitman, IO Interactive was founded by demo scene veterans. In fact, a ton of influential studios grew out of the demo scene. I first became interested in it after playing Control, finding out that Remedy was founded by members of Future Crew. It was a very influential demo group back in the day.
Also a very cool name. So it makes sense. Control has some insane visuals that, in the case of the launch PS4, is far too advanced for the hardware it's running on. But a lot of those studios do come from games where one technological breakthrough or one really good demo could make an entire game. I mean, Max Payne, like Bullet Time, was the technology behind it, and it took some hard coding to get that done. Granted, they wrapped it around with a lot of cool art assets. They made it a noir tale, they made levels out of it and stuff like that, so it wasn't just the tech. But there are a lot of games that can be made just because the tech works. I mean, Quake, first full 3D game, harkening back to a different time, when one miracle on a piece of metal could make an entire video game happen. So it's pretty cool stuff.
In particular, European game studios have lots of people came out of the demo scene. It was in many ways the proving ground and the secret society that could land you a job later in life, like a fraternity for the cool nerds.
Just the cool ones. Yeah,
like us.
So yeah, the Future Crew was just one of those major demo groups whose tendrils extended out into the world. The demo scene itself still exists, largely in the same European countries where it initially got popular.
Yeah, the popularity of the demo scene has gone steadily down for a long time now.
Why?
So one major reason is that the same hardware limitations just don't apply anymore.
Yeah, it's not sporting when you have every resource in the world.
We have supercomputers compared to what they were using. Early demos were very, very small by necessity. Today, you have to make a conscious decision to put those limitations on yourself. It just doesn't have the same appeal that it used to.
Yeah, there's also so many other ways just to get into coding in the first place. Very small teams of people have been putting out great indie games for a while now, a practice far more profitable than making demos or subjecting yourself to the weird environments of a demo party.
There also just aren't as many big demo parties as there used to be. I mean, that's kind of a byproduct of what you're just talking about.
Life and times, yeah.
Yeah, but some of the ones that still exist have also pivoted to be more focused on just computer stuff in general. It's not really about demos anymore. It's kind of just about tech.
Computing, futurism.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but before you pour out your 40s for the scene, we have good news. It still exists. Yes, it's smaller and somehow even more niche than it was before, but there are still parties and there are still people making making awesome.
So let's wrap things up. First of all, go watch a bunch of demos. Put them on while you work. Unless you drive an ambulance or something, you know. They're really cool and relaxing. Some of them. The techno can be a little jarring.
That can be a little intense, but there are like ones of like space whales that are made out of chrome texture just to show off reflections and stuff. I agree, there are like demo compilations, demo through the years things. Like an hour and a half can fly by, especially if you're in a maybe not so sober state of mind. One thing that I enjoy though is like watching a demo and trying to reverse it, understand the exact tech that they were super proud of that they wanted to show off. Because sometimes it's like, we did reflections, we did particle physics, we did liquid physics, and then most of the demos revolved around that. Also, just a ton of late 90s, early 2000s typography. Once they started getting into having like typesetting and graphics in demos, a lot of very cool visual design that is intensely dated, but it's fun to go back and see that
in a
stuff.
cool way. It's the 90s vision of the future.
Exactly.
That we kind of never quite lived down. It's still sort of in the back of our lizard brain as being the future, what the future looks like.
Exactly, it's the proto-matrix.
Yes.
Another thing you can do after this video, if the demo scene has caught your eyes, play some games made by Demoscene people and experience for yourself how influential this weird little movement was, and to some degree still is. Yeah, I remember downloading 64K demos. I would just double click the executable and then it was a full FPS shooter. Music, sound effects, textures, everything. 64K.
Yeah.
And it was like 4 levels that took like 40 minutes to beat. It was pretty cool.
You know, amongst all the studios that we kind of already mentioned, Guerrilla Games, Lionhead, and Media Molecule all have major ties to the demo scene.
So that's kind of it for today. Hope you learned something. Demoscene is a cool, very core part of coding and game development.
Yeah.
But that is kind of where all the future was pushed for a very significant portion of time. Hey, you know what? If you did learn anything, go out and throw a keyboard around, I don't know. You will learn how hard it is to throw one of those big mechanical keyboards.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Not easy.
It's Friday night. You get a couple of drinks in, look up Demoscene compilation on YouTube and enjoy the ride.
And then call your ex and scream at her about it. Or him.
We got some very, very deep thoughts about Control for you, so buckle up. This might be the thinkiest think piece we've ever thunk.
We've been deep into Control, and surprising no one, we have some thoughts, as Lawrence alluded to, about reality and perception and the manifestations of our deepest and darkest thoughts. Fun stuff.
Yeah, so we'll give you a second to get mentally prepared. So Control is a game that centers heavily on corruption of the incorruptible, or at least the supposedly incorruptible.
Spaces, objects, functions, and people that we'd like to